And we are live. What's going on, everybody? I'm Gonzales, also known as Coral on social media, CEO and co-founder of OSSA.AI. Joined today with me, we have Mr. Sean, the AI automation expert, content creator, absolute legend. We've worked together for quite some time now, actually. So he's been helping me out personally with my content, my systems, helping out OSSA.AI as well. Absolutely crushing it. We built some pretty cool things. So I'm super excited to have him on today to talk about, his background, some of the things he's working on, about his business and what he's doing and who he helps. And yeah, just to kick it off, Sean, tell us about you.
Absolutely, man. So obviously, like you said, we've been working together for quite some time, and I do run my own company, Covenant Labs, and I started that about 2 years ago. Now, it wasn't called Covenant Labs at the time, but we were kind of doing the same thing. Started off doing basic automations for anybody who came to us with a project. It was like, I want this automated. It was done. Since then, kind of moved out of a lot of the custom work. In terms of what we do, we primarily work with software like make.com, NAN to build actual, automated workflows. And then with AI as well, we train custom models, and it goes beyond just like the basic training techniques that you see on social media, which we can get into as well. We pretty much build them from the ground up, and the stuff that they can create is really cool as well. But kind of moved out of a lot of the custom territory into focusing primarily on helping agencies and content creators with sales and marketing systems. Because one of the things I did notice with a lot of the clients that I brought on, and it was just kind of a trend that I saw, it was either person has a lot of traffic, they're great at creating content, but they have no sales system in place, or they, have a sales system in place, they have a business, but they have no personal brand, and they're not driving any traffic whatsoever. And so kind of set out just to solve those two issues with systems in general,
Yeah, for sure. And, before we talk a little bit deeper about systems, because we were just kind of joking in the studio before we hopped in here. So like, what do we not talk about? Because I've gotten to a point, with Sean as well, where it's like and this is pretty crazy, where because of Sean and our work together, I used to spend hours, days, copywriting. And now it's like we've created such a good system that I probably spend 2 hours a week copywriting. And it's not even copywriting because we're using AI models to help with script writing. And I like press a button and it creates a record using an automation and Airtable. And then we've created this whole system for my video editors with Frame.io, where it's like, if like the feedback I give to my editors, I just have to like drop a few comments, move the status. And it's just this crazy system. So I guess what I'm really interested about before we kind of hop into the meat of this conversation and maybe share a screen and show off kind of what we're really talking about.
Sure.
What was like the first thing that got you into kind of operations and systems and AI? Because I actually don't know that myself. So I'm kind of interested.
That's a really good question. So when I was still kind of like a newbie with business and everything like that in general, I tried a bunch of different things. Everybody says this when they get into entrepreneurship, but it's like, I did drop shipping, I did SMMA, whatever the case might be. I did a little bit of drop shipping on the side. I just did like a little bit of crypto bro trading, just like kind of threw some money into some things. It did okay. Maybe it did decent. But one of the people I actually ended up meeting, and she taught me a lot of what I know about AI. She is the lead AI developer for a Series D biotech company. They've raised over $300 million in funding. So she taught me a lot of what I do know about AI. And then I kind of just set off. And one of the cool things about it, and I think a lot of people don't think about this when they approach like new tech or just tech in general, it's very money focused. Like how can I, make money from this? But for me, honestly, I was just more so focused on building products that I know I would actually use, because I was already creating content at the time. I wasn't, I didn't have as big of an audience as I do now, but I was already creating content. And once I started actually, practicing using AI or building out these automations, I started thinking about how I could use them myself in order to either A, grow my social media page, or B, find some other way to, monetize that type of thing. And I think when you treat it kind of like play, it's that classic quote where it's like, you treat your work like play, but that's exactly how it is. Like for, another client, we just built out a fitness app that like it as soon as somebody's onboarded, it gives them all the macros they need. It creates an entirely personalized meal plan. They can track their workouts, which is a functionality that we're adding. It's integrated with this food database that also generates like meal plans and has images and everything like that. And when it comes to building stuff like that out, I just enjoy it because it's stuff that I know I would use. I'm super big into fitness. So I'm like, all right, this is a super cool product. And a lot of the systems that I end up building for myself also are useful for others. And I know they're good, or I know they're really bad because I'm the one using it,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
No, it totally makes sense. And that's super cool. Yeah. And I would honestly just maybe love to, if you want, like share screen, maybe we can dive into like the
Sure.
specifics. Cause I'm sure there's a lot of people watching, right, that are like, what does it even mean? Cause AI is still really new. Right. And I feel like we're really on the frontier of it. Every single day we're improving, our systems at OSSA, my systems for my personal content. And then Sean, I don't know if I mentioned this, but Sean has, I believe, a couple 100K across all your socials. So Sean's actually a content creator as well and a business owner. So super dope. But yeah, Sean, maybe, I know maybe you want to show off like your systems, right? And really what it looks like, because words really don't do it justice in terms of what is actually possible with all the tools. And maybe we can talk about, our specific tech stack that we use as content creators to actually do this stuff. So yeah,
absolutely, man. Yeah. And I think it's really funny while I pull this up as well, that you mentioned like just not, there's so much to talk about. Cause I was out with some buddies even just last night, and it's like just taking this stuff to a place where it's like, there's so many different avenues I could take. Like for example, with appointment setters, like I have, an AI SDR offer that's like, it handles everybody's, DMs, everything like that. There's just so much that can be done, on the side of content creation as well. That it's really hard to like hone in on one specific thing, because you can really do whatever you want. And there's a lot you can do. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. I'll show you this real first. So this is going to look like there's a lot going on, but it's not as intimidating as it looks. With content creators, like one of the biggest things when it comes to creating content, and like one of the biggest blockers, is the actual process of coming up with ideas. Like obviously that's, incredibly important. If you don't have a good idea, if you have ideas, that's great. If you don't have a good idea, like the content's not going to do super well. Or if you don't have an idea whatsoever, you're not creating content in the first place. So this was something that I always found myself kind of struggling with, even with, chat GPT or whatnot, because the ideas it does come out with are really bad, without, proper prompting. And even then it's just like, I couldn't really find inspiration. I was kind of stuck in a rut. But that being said, there are some creators that I did take a lot of inspiration from, and that's kind of what this automation takes advantage of. So I'll kind of walk you through it real quick. First and foremost, it starts with something called an RSS feed. Essentially what this does is let's just say I take a lot of inspiration from your content, right? Which I do, but, and I want to track it every time you post, because I want to kind of keep an eye on your page just so I can draw inspiration and draw ideas from your page specifically. So I have a list of creators, both on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, like specific websites, all linked up to this one RSS feed. So whenever a new post comes in from anybody, it gets sent directly here. And this runs every, I think, hour or so. What happens from here is, depending on the content type, there are a couple different paths it could take. So if it's a Twitter post, for example, it's just going to create a summary of the content, and then it's going to add it to a custom software that I'm building, which I'll show you in just a moment. From there, it'll basically turn it into, 10 specific ideas that are directly correlated to my niche, exactly what I do, exactly what my offer is. And it'll create those 10 ideas and add them to the software as well, kind of nested underneath, where I can then go through and choose topics. Same thing happens up here. If it's an Instagram reel video that somebody posts, right? It's going to download that audio file. It's going to, it's going to download the video file. It's going to turn it into an audio file, so an MP3. Then it's going to use OpenAI's Whisper to transcribe it, create a content summary, add it to the software. And then from there, I have two different like content ideation tabs here, because I was kind of experimenting with things. But from there, it'll create 10 content ideas that are specific, again, to my offer and exactly what I do, and add those to the table as well. It does the same thing with YouTube videos, again, like website posts as well. It can even analyze images, which is pretty sick. So pretty much have this constant influx of content ideas that come from actual like events or stuff that people post and that have been turned into content ideas for my specific offer and the type of content that I post, which is really, really sick. And I can even show you the interface if you want in just a moment, but that's just one example of like, you know, an automation or a system that I personally use. And I'm still working on optimizing it, obviously, but even as it is, it's so cracked. Like it's so powerful, you know?
Dude, I need this. I need this myself, bro. It's crazy. No, this is awesome. Yeah, and let's definitely take a look at the UI.
I got you.
Before we do, maybe you could kind of click into some of it because people might not even know what this tool is, right? So this is, you know, make.com. So maybe we can talk a little bit about maybe like kind of what this all means. And then I think like a big part to this is we're specifically talking about automations for content creators. But Sean and I built out systems operations wise for the business, right? Because a big thing that I always look at is like how I define like how like we're kind of going towards this way in business where it's like if like anything that is repeatable and that can be defined can be optimized, right? Because through an LLM, you can basically take your brain, define what is good, and then give it examples, and then you can systematize that, and then it can perform that action on behalf of you, right? Because it's like this content summary, right? I don't even have to click in, but my assumption is that Sean has probably prompted it to have a specific output because he knows what a good content summary looks like, right? So why would he go and have to create the content summary? We can just define it once through a prompt and then have an LLM create what he would create as a content summary, right? And then you're seeing all these chains. It's basically just passing inputs, outputs. And then maybe if you want to dive a little deeper into that.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of automation software, first and foremost, the first thing that most people think of if they have heard of automation software in the first place is Zapier. Zapier is a great, or Zapier, however you say it. Like it's different for everybody. I mean, but that being said, it's a great place to start if you're someone who doesn't have a lot of technical background or you don't have much experience with automation and you're just kind of looking for a place to get in. That being said, I've kind of found that it's incredibly expensive because they have a bit of a monopoly just over automation software as a whole. Like they're kind of the go-to. But that being said, it's super expensive. I think for, you know, $30 a month, you can get 750 tasks, which I think a task is basically, you know, every time a automation runs, it's going to use up a task specifically. So for $30 a month, you can get 750. Whereas with Make, you can get 10,000 operations for $10.59 a month. Now, operations are a little bit different in the way that I guess I don't have to get like too technical with it right now, but operations are a little bit different because you will end up using more because the start point of the automation itself counts as an operation, or if something errors out, it counts as an operation, that type of thing. But still, just the cost to how much you're actually getting for Make is absolutely insane, and it blows Zapier out of the water. Not to mention with Make as well, they have a free course. So they have academy.make.com that basically teaches you how to use the software entirely from scratch. I have my brother going through it right now because I'm training him up to start building some automations and stuff. And it's super comprehensive. Like as soon as you come out of that, you're going to know how to build out automations on a pretty good level. You're not going to be an expert or anything like that, but you're going to be miles ahead of 99% of people. But I guess to kind of break it down just a little bit, each one of these is a module that just represents a different step inside of the automation. So right here, Cloud Convert, it's, you know, performing a function, which you can see right down here. This is the function that it's performing, converting a file. I'm converting a file from, you know, an MP4 to an MP3, which is an audio file. So from video to audio. And then you have creation of a transcript. So now I'm taking that audio file from Cloud Convert right here, and I'm sending it off to OpenAI's Whisper, which is then creating a transcript of that audio file. And so on and so on. I can use the outputs of these in the next module and in the next one, and so on and so on. I guess the last thing I want to cover here as well is you'll notice I have these two different, you know, content ideation steps. And that's because I was experimenting with two different ways that you can get an output from ChatGPT, right? So the first is with just a prompt, right? You give it a prompt like, hey, give me some content ideas, right? You can see my prompt right here. This is literally the entire prompt. I'm giving it an output because I turn it into JSON. So it turns it into like individual items rather than just one block of text. But you have this output. The ideas were okay. I have a little bit of information about my offer, but they weren't super great. So what I decided to do was use an assistant instead. Now, assistants are unique in the way that you can use files with them as well. So you can give them files for reference. And instead of having to paste that entire long prompt in here, I instead have it in the system message for the assistant. And I can just give it the title and the transcript. And then I can have it actually go into those files and see, the templates for the ideas. So it's pretty sick.
Bro, sorry to interrupt you. This is crazy. I didn't know that you could message assistants, dude. This is nuts.
Yeah, and it's absolutely amazing because with these assistants as well, you can use, and we can maybe talk about this in a second, but you can use fine-tuned models, which is something that is new. And honestly, I don't even know if OpenAI meant to do it because I had it once, I lost access to it. I messaged their support team. They never hit me back really. And then all of a sudden it reappeared again. But that being said, being able to custom train your own models and then also giving them files to reference inside of the automation, basically you might as well have an actual human. You have your up-to-date information from the file search, and then you have the writing style, the tone of voice that, any copywriter would have without having to use basic, ChatGPT. So it's pretty sick.
Great. No, this is great. And to break it down, just to kind of piggyback off what you're saying. So basically inside of OpenAI, right? So we know these are now, modules, and they go step by step. And then maybe you can go to the left here and show the filters as well. So people can kind of take a look at those as well. Right. So you can also set up filters. So that's really what's happening here is he has something called a router. And basically it's going to look at, it's going to basically check a condition, right? So here he has the file name 51, which is coming from, is that the audio file?
So as long as it's an audio file, or as long as it's a video file. So if it's an MP4, it'll go down this route and convert it to a, MP3. But sometimes if somebody posts like an image on Instagram, if you post a picture, I still want to take a look at that image. I still want to use it to get content ideas, but sometimes that's not really, applicable. Obviously I can't convert a JPEG into an MP3 file. That just doesn't happen. So what's going to happen is this is going to run into an error. So what I do instead is if it's a video, it'll go down this route, which is exactly what this router does. It'll go this way. If it's an image, so if it has, JPG, JPEG, PNG, anything like that, it'll go down this route. And instead it'll use OpenAI's vision to analyze the image.
Yeah, it's brilliant. This is so sick. And just kind of piggybacking once again. So in terms of like the assistants, things like that. So basically what Sean is saying is inside of OpenAI, if you go to their website, you can create an account for free. And then I guess we won't dive too much into fine tuning, but basically what fine tuning is like, if you're using ChatGPT, right? And no matter how good the prompt is, it just cannot figure it out, right? Because sometimes you need a very specific output, maybe it's in JSON, or maybe you just need a very specific output, for some sort of automation or business thing that you're doing, right? Maybe it's like a reporting feature. Maybe it's, a customer support bot, right? It needs to have not only like a specific response formatting, but maybe it also needs context, right? And that's what Sean was just talking about there is not only, inside of OpenAI, when you create that free account, can you like have an assistant with context, which is context just means maybe, for example, customers, you have a customer support bot and it needs to know everything about your business, right? So you can load in files. And then on top of that, right, you could use a fine-tune model, which basically put really simply, you can just give it tons of examples and then it's going to be biased to respond in that format. And that's really what he's done here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's interesting because fine-tuning is kind of something that's swept under the rug. Like if you're on social media, most people who create content around AI talk about, like the prompts or loading those files in, which is another way to say that is RAG, which is retrieval augmented generation. So there's kind of a couple different ways you can train an AI model. The first is with prompting, which is you give it a prompt and it gives you an output. The second is with retrieval augmented generation, which is where you give it those files. So now when you ask it a question, instead of pulling from OpenAI's like, training data set or just like some random crap, it's going to look at those files that you gave to the model first and say, okay, this person just asked me what our refund policy is. This is the refund policy. I'm going to use that in the response. Fine tuning is really, really, really unique in the way that where you have the actual, the bot, and then you have the brain. So like the knowledge, the fine tuning changes the way that it speaks or it actually outputs, right? So if you were like hiring, a copywriter, for example, basic prompting would be like hiring a copywriter off of Fiverr. It'd be like, hey, write me a sales email, like, or abandoned cart email. It's like, you're going to get an email back, but it's going to be in their tone of voice, and you didn't give them any information about, the product. Then you have RAG, where it's like, hey, write me an abandoned cart email. Here's some information about my company. All right. It's going to be, accurate in terms of information. It's going to have the correct stuff, but it's still going to sound really bad. It's just going to be like in their voice. So with fine tuning, you're able to basically create a model that's basically as if you wrote it. So you have the knowledge, you have the actual output, and it's all in your own tone of voice. Something that like we've done is inside of the software, which I can show you the UI in just a moment, is we use these fine-tuned models. Like I have one for Twitter right now. I'm working on stuff for like short form emails as well. But we have a fine-tuned model that generates, tweets in that tone of voice. And we've implemented with other clients. We had another client, his name was Sean as well, ironically. And, he posted a tweet using one of the fine-tuned models. And not only did it go viral, it got like 500 likes, but it got the attention of a 9-figure e-commerce brand by the name of Try Snow. And they were wanting to work with him through that tweet. And it was all AI generated, and nobody had a single clue. So I think it's really interesting kind of, how good you can get these models to actually write or output things based on just like creating your own data set. It's technically intense, which is why most people don't know how to do it, but it's so powerful.
Yeah. And Sean and I have even talked about potentially doing like a joint kind of school community, because the more and more like we talk about this, the more and more I think, like, to be honest, there's a lot of information, right? Simply put, right, an automation is just like, I have this manual thing I want to do and I no longer want to do it, or I have a team member that's doing something that's very low leverage and mundane, and I want to have them working on higher leverage stuff. The thing that Sean and I are always looking at is like, where can we save time, right? Because as a business owner, right, if you want to make more money, you also need to have time, because if you're spread too thin, you're doing all these tedious tasks, right? It's like if you're always having to manually respond to emails, and you're always having to manually copyright, and you have stuff in Notion, and then you have it on your notes on your phone. It's like, if we just create systems for these things, we can save tons of time. And that's what's happened to me. And yeah, Sean, if you don't mind, maybe I could take over screen and kind of,
Absolutely.
I wasn't going to do this, but maybe I can show everyone maybe the system that we made for my content.
Absolutely.
All right. Let me pop in here.
Yeah. That thing it's a beast. It took a long time to build out, but it is a beast, man.
Okay.
Absolute beast.
So this video right here, where is it? I actually pinned it because it's one I just posted. So this one's at 1.2 million. This is actually the first Coral video we posted. This is the process I went through to get to that video. So I think that's like a good way to start it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and this is kind of the potential of creating systems right here. This is Airtable. This is a form, right? A form is basically just a way for you to submit information. And then inside of Airtable, you have something called tables, and tables are just rows, right? Kind of like in a database. But Airtable is just a simpler way to kind of structure your data if you're not like an engineer. Because Sean and I are definitely not engineers, but we're pretty tech heavy. Like, we understand how the things work. But I also don't want to have to go create a full database and do a bunch of API calls and all that stuff, right?
Code and all that crap. Yeah.
So essentially, how did I get, to this video here? I'll take you guys through it. And this video just got posted, I think, like 4 days ago, maybe 5. So here's a form that Sean and I set up inside of Airtable. So this is create new short form script. And you can see I have a bunch of interfaces here. So here I titled the video, right? And then we have basically target. So that means there's a lot going on here, but basically what happens is we can actually specify, because we have tracking links that are auto-generated, is the target, if I have a call to action in the video, is the target to OSSA or is it to Coal World? And if it's for Coal World, I have like a newsletter I'm building out. So we generate tracking links for my newsletter, right? So then here I can basically tell the model, because this form actually goes off into an automation that generates scripts for me. I can say, write me a short form script about XYZ thing. So maybe it's about, how my AI company is doing $1 million a year, or, the one thing I learned about whatever it is, right? Basically anything you want. And then here, giving any additional context, does the model need additional context? And the more I'm thinking about this, the more I'm thinking we can probably create an assistant for this.
100% we will.
100%. And then, so these are different types of hook types, which once again, we have prompts in the back end that know these types of hook types. And then the tone, right? Do I want to be serious? Do I want to be, funny, et cetera, et cetera? And then I can actually choose the type of call to action. This is a really common one. We talked about this in past live streams. One of them was with, I believe we talked about it with Ninja AI Tools, Brad Gaines. So if you haven't seen that one, if you want to understand ManyChat, basically there's another tool called ManyChat. You can comment on Instagram, you can connect it to your account. And then if someone comments a word, it sends them a link or it sends them a resource, right? Really great way to scale your marketing efforts and give people lead magnets. So I could specify that. And then once again, just some more extra information. On top of that here, we're definitely going to have to send this live stream to some of the content creators. They're going to see this and be mind blown. But here, right, so we have a bunch of, so these are all lead magnets that I have. So Sean and I created basically another table inside of Airtable that links to the free resource. So this is for my video editors. So when I talk about a free resource, right, what's like the simplest way for one of my video editors to like know what I'm talking about? Because think about it, when you create a piece of content, and I know this resonates with so many people, right? It's like, doesn't it suck to have to like have all these one-off conversations with your video editors and like tell them, hey, like here's the lead magnet, and you're like messaging them on Telegram and WhatsApp. It gets exhausting, right? So what Sean and I did is basically we just created a table where I insert a form, once again, with links to my free resources. And then there's a short description. So then it links to what I'll show you guys, which is a record, so that my video editors can just pop in there. They can open it, click the link. Oh, here's the lead magnet he's talking about. I don't even need to ask him. So that's what this does here. And then any notes that I have for my video editors, right? So maybe I say, here's the link to the, to the thing. And then I can drop a link here, right? And this will all make sense in a second. And then ManyChat trigger keywords. Once again, this is something we'll probably dive into later, but the content creators will know what this means. But basically, you can set up a keyword. So maybe inside of my script at the end, the call to action is, comment keyword for X down below. Maybe it's like comment guide, right? So I can say that, and that'll come into play later. I hit create. And then from here, maybe Sean can dive into this because he's the one who built this out, kind of like what we're about to see. But I'm going to go ahead and pull this up right here.
Absolutely. Yeah. So essentially, as soon as that script is generated, it's going to create a separate record that's going to show up here. So what this is it's just a record view. So basically, you could use record views for anything from, employee profiles to stuff like this, where you can see information about, the content. So what's going to happen here essentially is it's going to create 4 variations of the script, and they're all going to populate here. What Cole can do from here is if he has any feedback with the script, he can leave it inside of the feedback tab, click a button, it'll send it off to another automation and then regenerate it. And then if he wants to, create like an actual record. So if he's like, okay, this script is super solid, I made whatever adjustments I need to make with it. He can click like the create OSSA record or the create Cole world record button. And you can see that it's actually like regenerating right there. And as soon as that's done, it's basically going to click on, it's going to say complete, and he can add it to one of these Kanban CRMs. So as soon as that's done, it's going to show up in the upcoming tab inside of this CRM here. This is where both himself and all of the video editors can keep like track of the content. So it's going to show up in the upcoming tab at first, just because he's still got to film it. He's got to sit down and actually record the content, upload all of the, the raw footage, the actual audio, everything like that. But as soon as that's done, it's going to be moved into, the ready for editing. And once an editor picks it up, they can throw their name on there, whether, it doesn't matter really who it is. And they can start editing that video. Now, it's going to kind of move back and forth as it moves through the editing stages. Everything is done in Frame. So as soon as they upload that video to Frame, the title actually has the record ID inside of the name. So what happens is they upload the video to Frame. They mark it as this video needs review. It takes that record ID, finds it inside of the video content CRM, and then manually moves it to the needs review stage and tags Cole inside of Slack saying, hey, this video needs review, and you can access it by clicking this button here. They go back and forth. If Cole leaves like some comments or some revision comments, whatever the case might be, he can go ahead and mark it as, he can move it back to the in editing stage or in progress stage. And inside of the CRM, it will update with a needs revisions tag, and will add those revision comments to that piece of content as well. So they'll go back and forth with that for a little while. And then as soon as it's approved is when the actual exciting stuff starts to happen. And we move over to the social media manager CRM as well, which this thing is just absolutely nuts. If you want to walk them through how like the translation works and everything as well, go for it.
Yeah. So this is something we're kind of testing, and I'm going to see how it works. We just kind of started this, but basically what I'm doing is I'm using HeyGen. So shout out to HeyGen. If you guys see this, you guys have been great. I've been giving them a lot of great feedback. An amazing platform. But yeah, essentially what happens is on the record getting approved here, it creates a new inside of, we can see here we have Coral short form posts, OSSA short form posts, right? So inside here, I'll just show an example here. So this recently got approved, right? So it needs a translation. So if I pop in here, you can see I just have steps, like instructions for what I need to do. And typically, like, the reason there's so many steps here is because I'm posting in 4 different languages on 4 accounts for OSSA and Cole World. So it's like typically what this would look like is if you had this system for yourself and you're just posting like in English, it would go here, and then you would maybe just add a caption, which you can also have an automation to actually do captions. You can create an assistant, which I'm sure we'll probably do really soon here. Sean, I think we're talking about that. Basically, like if you need to add any copy, you need to add, it would probably just go into needs copy. So I'm not even going to go into the translation stuff because it's going to be a lot. But let's just say, for example, this is your dashboard, right? The video gets approved. It goes through that process with your video editors. You guys are chatting back and forth between the comments, right? And then you're using these statuses to kind of reflect across, your CRM inside of Airtable. And then here it gets approved, right? So it creates an actual post record. So that can get kind of moved away from the video editor CRM. They know it's approved. Their job's done, right? They don't need to know about copy. They don't need to know about ManyChat. They don't care, right? They just want to have the video approved and move on to the next one. So that's why we have these segmented out. And then from here, right, let's just say, for example, I did my translation stuff, which is kind of irrelevant to probably most people watching, and that goes into needs copy. From there, I'll just kind of show you what it looks like. So I go ahead and put a caption, and then it's going to get translated for me through an automation when I move it. And then here, I basically just have tracking links for all different types of platforms. So for basically for English, for French, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of stuff here, but basically just tracking links, things like that. And then from there, essentially what I do is I check to make sure that I have a ManyChat automation set up. So you can kind of click in here and you can see I already have, once again, we have another right here. We have another table inside of Airtable for the ManyChat automations that I have. So they're already linked, right? So it automatically knew if I say originally, right? Because we talked about this a second ago. If I come in here and I say guide, then it's going to know, okay, link to the record, which is the ManyChat automation that has the keyword guide, right? So that's just super cool. And just coming back in here, basically this step is just to make sure that a ManyChat automation exists for this piece of content, because you don't want to post a piece of content that says, comment ManyChat to get my guide, and then it's not there, right? Because it's like, oh shit, like obviously they're not going to get the guide. You'll have a bunch of people commenting. So that's what this is here. And then from there, basically I just moved into ready to schedule. And then the way I like to do it, I use Sprinkler. A little more expensive. I know there's some opinions about like, do they obviously lower your views on videos? I mean, this video right here did 1.2 million views. I posted it through Sprinkler, so that obviously ends that debate. Unless you consider that shadow banned. I don't know. Maybe some people do. But yeah, essentially from there, I move it to ready to schedule. I click in here. This is something I didn't show, but we have all the links here automatically populated. So for this video, right, I didn't manually put this in. I just open it up. It's going to have the direct link to that frame video, which is already approved from earlier. I download it, right? And then I have my caption. I put that into Sprinkler. I set the time, right? And this is a manual thing I have personally, just so I can back reference. I just pop in here and say when I posted it, just in case I need to look back. And that's it. And then it posts. And it seems like, right, like, wow, that was like a lot of steps. But really, it's like I do the copywriting. I film it really quick, I drop it in there, and then my only touch points is like, okay, the video editor, like I don't have to tell the video editor when to go and edit it because we have automation set up in Slack to tell them, hey, this is ready to be recorded, right? And then we have a process internally for them to basically, pick up the video and then assign themselves and move it into editing, right? And then when it goes into review, well, like Sean said, when it gets dropped into Frame.io, right, and then move it to needs review, it automatically picks that up and then it pings me. I check it. If I have feedback, drop comments in the comment section, move it back into in review inside of Frame. And then, like Sean was saying, it shows the comments in here. They make the changes, they put it back, approve it. That's it.
So easy. Just like script, basically done. You sit down, film, write caption, and watch their edits. Like that's it. And it's like, even this probably goes beyond even like what most people do with short form content. Like they write it, they script it. But it's also like important for, the business growth side of things, seeing how lead magnets are performing, tracking where exactly people are coming in from. One lead magnet might get X amount of link clicks, but, not convert the best. Whereas another one might get like half the number of link clicks and it converts 10 times better. So even that's all just being done automatically with like the tracking links and everything like that. And it's really cool because you are creating content in 4 different languages. You're tracking where every single person that goes to OSSA is coming from, exactly, where all of your automations are.
Lead magnets, the ManyChat, right? It's like, I'm a business owner, right? Like I'm a content creator, but I'm also a business owner. And I've created probably 6,000 or 7,000 videos like in the past half decade, maybe past 6-7 years. And like, I know all of the pain of a content creator, and like through Sean and I working together, we've been able to create this insane system that really just solves all the problems of a content creator. And then kind of next up, what we're going to be working on, which we'll be happy to share with you guys when we're done, is, not only is our background and my background in content creation, but I have like a really pretty lengthy background in sales. Like I did door-to-door sales, which in my opinion is like the best training ever for someone who's doing sales, because it forces you to, you can't fake like door-to-door sales.
Can't be shy. Like you gotta get out there.
So I was lucky enough to get into that when I was 16, 17 years old. And I carried that into my content creation journey. And there's really 2 things that I've identified, Sean and I have identified about content creators that, we want to help people with in the future. One is that like content creators are typically kind of unorganized just by nature, because it's like, there's a lot, right? They're creative people. Yeah, exactly. They're creative people. That's what I was looking for. It can get really overwhelming because you just want to like create the thing, right? You don't want to have to worry about like what state is it in, and like you don't want to have to message your video editor and like go back and forth. It gets exhausting. Like I've done all these things, right? So it's like, okay, how do we solve this? So that's really how we approach that system. But then when it comes to brand deals, right? I've told this story. I've closed brands for $30,000 for a 60-second video. And the thing is that a lot of creators don't have any sales background because they like, it's kind of a nuanced thing. And you wouldn't typically see like a content creator who has background in sales, just not really common, right? So it's like, I want to help people understand that their value is much higher, but they just don't know. They don't really know that like by working with brands, right? Because you have, something like maybe you have a school community or maybe you have a product you're selling, but a lot of people just want to work with brands. It's like, you are the product. So you have to sell yourself to these companies. And a lot of creators they don't even know where to start. So it's like, they could be selling people or selling themselves, for thousands of dollars, but they're only making a couple hundred. And that's because brands aren't going to tell them, hey, like I'm getting this crazy arbitrage on you. Like they're not going to tell you that. Right. So it's like, I want, and it's kind of counterintuitive to OSSA, but I know all the creators appreciate it. So I still tell them, but I'm like, you guys are getting so rinsed by all these companies, and I'll tell you all this stuff, but you can't use it against us. That's like our only, that's the only promise you have to make there. Yeah. So a lot of pretty soon here, a lot of these companies in the AI space aren't going to like us because we're going to be teaching these creators really how to charge what they're worth, and stop being taken advantage of. So it's going to be exciting. So yeah, dude, I'm super, super happy we showed that. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm excited for what we have coming.
Same, man. And I real quick as well, I saw someone say something in the chat like about the storing the ideas for the videos, which if like obviously we talked about the actual automation side of things, like taking the ideas, but I can show the interface real fast. Let me see if my app is going to load here in terms of actually storing the ideas. So I'll show you kind of like the in-app builder. Let me share my screen if that's okay real fast.
Yep.
And then I'll show you what it looks like for actually creating tweets. So some of the thumbnails are missing because I'm still working on some things on the back end. Now, what I'm showing you guys here, this is a no-code builder called Glide. There's a lot. I can go into no-code builders all day. It's very easy coming from a background of not having like any coding knowledge. If you're someone who just wants to build a responsive mobile and web app, Glide is a great option for doing so. That being said, it's limited in so many ways, and eventually I'll be moving it off of here. But for now, I just wanted to have some kind of like front end interface. You can see here, like for example, Yo Dakota or Varun Maya, like this is all my automation. So these are coming from people that it's watching on specifically that what's it called in that automation basically. So for example, if I click into this, it goes into AI news. And then if I go back here, let me see if I can find like a decently good one. There's one that was like Pokemon Sleep. If I click into this, this is a newer one right here. So you can see that it actually has like the ideas there because I finished out that automation. So it's like, talking about coach and agency operations, blah, 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 breaking down high performance CRMs with Airtable. Cool. Yeah. So it's like I can click a button, add that to my topics, and then I have like a topics table. This is still something I'm working on. So like the topics table isn't very fleshed out, but if I go to like the gen tweets, for example, I have a form I can fill out here where I can generate the tweet. And then, I have like top 5 automation tools or mistakes to avoid. So these are all tweets that were written by the AI model. So it's like, anyone can watch this back and actually take a look at the tweets, but they're pretty good, like they're really, really good tweets. And if I keep going back even further, like, let me see if I can find a good one, like protecting your time. Like the biggest lesson when running a biz, your time is sacred. I get pitches every day for everything under the sun, crypto, Amazon stores, real estate, you name it. I've never been more relentless in ignoring them. Laser focus on the mission, no distractions. I didn't write that at all. Like, and it's a pretty, good tweet. All I did was I got an idea. I added it to my topics. I clicked the button, boom, 4 tweets right there. And I'm doing the same thing with short form content, long form outlines, the newsletter side of things, which absolutely go insane, like for writing emails. So it's like, you could either pay $1,500 a month to a Twitter ghostwriter or a Twitter copywriter, or you can create your own fine-tuned model and actually, write tweets that are good. And it sucks because like, even just with the system that we showed and everything like that, it's like I could spend 8 hours talking about this stuff and going into the technical side of things, but it's just living in a very interesting time when it comes to content creation. And like, this is still something that's a work in progress for me, but it's my actual system. Like this is what I'm using for myself. And that's why I know this stuff works because I use it,
Yeah. I mean, the more and more we talk about this, Sean, the more and more I'm like excited because it's like something Sean and I have talked about, right? Is like, I have my personal brand, Core World, and I have, 7 million followers. And then I have OSSA, right? And, I'm always going to talk about OSSA, but what I don't want my community to start thinking of me is like, oh my God, all he does is talk about OSSA, right? Because I want to also give value. So it's like these systems that we've created and the system that we will be creating for brand deals, I can confidently say there's literally nothing better on earth for content creators. Like there are 0 platforms or courses that will teach you like how to build out a system like this for content creators. Cause it's like, at the end of the day, how valuable would it to be if you had something that automates your thoughts of what type of videos you want to create, automates your ability to script write, automates the ability to create an actual piece of work, a record for that thing, like automates your ability to basically put it in a place and then give it to your video editor, automates the ability for you to give feedback to them, to create the record, all the tracking links, the link to resources, right? And that's just short form. So it's like, I definitely think we'll be working on something together over the next little bit of time to just help content creators, because it's like this stuff is so valuable and nobody's using it because they just don't know how to do it. Like that's really what it is.
There's just information overwhelm. And even like to some extent, I think for somebody who wants to do it on their own and like actually learn to build it, I do think it's good to have, you know, the fundamental like basics and decent skills at script writing. So it's like you're not, because there's a point where it's like you're building something that's actually, you know, useful to you. Like if you're already an expert content creator and you create content and you know what a good script looks like, you know something is going to perform or not, it makes sense to build out a lot of systems like these because, you know, you have that background, you have that understanding. For someone who's like just starting to create content, it can be useful, but at the same time, you're kind of just shooting like shots in the dark. Even if the content's super good, you don't really have that eye or that intuition for like, oh, you know, this one's a banger. Like this one's gonna do super well. I do, you know, believe always in that basic level of understanding what makes a good script, what makes a good hook, like those principles that go into it. If you're going to build your own systems, if you're going to have someone else do it for you, then, you know, just make sure it's somebody who knows about content themselves. And I think that's an issue with like a lot of AI software is they have this content software and that's what you've cracked. Like you come from a content creation background. You know, if something is going to perform, you know, if the product is not performing up to the, you know, standard that it should be in order to actually get results. But most people, it's like, yeah, I built, you know, an AI copywriting tool, but it's like they're not really a copywriter. So to them, it looks really good. But you show that to any copywriter, it's like what is this, you know? And I think that's where a lot of these big companies are coming from.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head, and maybe that's like maybe a point we can wrap up on, and then maybe you can tell people where to kind of find more of your stuff, because you do have a lot of great stuff. I think that's kind of where we're at is, yeah, of course, dude. It's like, this has always been my hypothesis on AI, and it's what birthed the idea of OSSA. It's like, what is brilliant about AI right now is that if you are skilled in some field, then the amount of leverage that you can create by defining your understanding of that field inside of a model is tremendous. If you're a lawyer, right, and you have some certain, you know, context on how to do things right within your firm, and then you can define processes, you can define what is the right way to do XYZ thing. Because at the end of the day, everything is just steps, right? You have high level decisions in a business that should be made, in my opinion, by a human, but all those things in between, it's like, if you have the skill set to understand there's 100 steps, then you can automate 100 steps and it'll do the job maybe better than you and faster than you. So it's like, I took that same approach with OSSA, but this is what I've been saying for the past 2 years is like, there's so many people are sleeping on this and how much leverage you can create if you actually have the skill set. And Sean, you know, hit the nail on the head there. It's like, there's so many companies right now that are in really the bubble that we're in. There's a lot of creative endeavors that require immense, like deep skill, like narrow, deep skill, copywriting, content creation, you know, whatever it might be, and kind of the content creation, you know, creative realm. And it's like, you have all these tech people that are trying to solve problems that they've never had themselves with tech. Yeah. And that's why you're getting like shitty products that don't actually really solve a problem. They're just kind of gimmicky and cool. So it's like, we are getting to a point, especially over the next couple of years, where there's going to be companies like OSSA and, you know, products that might be built by people like, you know, Sean himself, that will just overtake these companies because they don't actually understand what problem they're solving. Like, it's not a problem. People know how to create videos. What they don't know how to do is take their ideas and create engaging videos that perform on social media. And no matter how much funding that you have, $100 million, if you don't have someone who understands tech, content creation, and the human condition, aka how to actually create a piece of content that performs, like, you're shit out of luck, because it's not going to be a good product. So yeah. I just think that's super dope.
Beautifully said. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I totally agree.
Closing thoughts, Sean. Where can people find, you know, more of your stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So where I post most frequently is on my Instagram account. It's Zorro the Wiz. Zorro is just a, you know, a name that I came up with a long time ago, and I started getting an audience and it stuck. So Zorro the Wiz on Instagram. I also have a YouTube channel under Zorro the Wiz. I post there pretty decently frequently as well. Those are usually where I'm more active. You can also, you know, check out my website. It's covenantlabs.net. Otherwise, I'm just mostly active on those social platforms. Feel free to reach out to me anytime. And yeah, that's usually where I'll be found.
Brilliant. Well, yeah, you guys heard it here first. Not really, but
yeah, close enough.
But you know what I'm saying. Yeah, it's been awesome, man. You definitely heard it here first in terms of how insane these systems are. No one else is building systems like this. Like Sean has deep knowledge across all these different industries where when you pull them together with AI, it's just incredible. So yeah, it's been awesome working with Sean. We'll be doing a lot of really cool stuff moving forward. So make sure to kind of keep a temperature check on some of the stuff we're doing. You guys can find his socials as well, linked below, if you're on YouTube. And then obviously we just dropped his socials, or his username as well, Zoro the Wiz, with the Z. So ZORO the Wiz. So yeah, guys, make sure to go give him some love, check out his stuff. And yeah, it's been awesome having you on, man. This has been a blast.
Appreciate it, man. I had a blast yapping. So thank you.